All right, guys. I smarted off this morning, and so now I got to either fold up like a cheap tent or come back firing. Which one will I do? Okay, here's the deal. So this morning I made an offhand comment at the end of a segment about something along the lines of, I think what we were talking about. We were talking about Duke Johnson, and I was like, why don't you just trade for him? Give up a third-round pick and trade Zeke and get a first-round pick back. And I will start with this. I'll start with one admission. I don't think I would actually do that just because of where you are in the season right now. There's no draft coming up. There's no free agency coming up. I'd like to have or Duke Johnson. I'd rather have Zeke, of course, because he's a monster. Zeke is awesome. And now here's another thing I got to get out of the way. Don't accuse me of any hating now. I can't be accused of hating. And to prove it, I made sure I was wearing my Cowboy draft bucket hat. And that's a Zeke shirt, okay? When he came out with his own gear, I put money in his pocket. I like Zeke. I'm a Zeke fan. This is one of those, it's not you, it's me. Except in this case, it's not you, it's the league. So here's what we want to do. I want to try my very best to prove to you that entertaining the idea of trading any running back, and sure, I'm going to include Zeke. This is about Zeke. Trading any running back, if you can get good compensation and avoid having to pay him big money, of course you entertain that idea. Here's what I want to start with, because this is about Ezekiel Elliott, right? We're talking Cowboys. We're talking Ezekiel Elliott. So let's start with him specifically. Let's entertain the idea for a second that the Cowboys situation is different than everybody else's, because I'm going to prove to you that most teams, we've already seen how this works. But let's start with the Cowboys themselves. Let's start with Zeke himself. Let's do that. So Zeke, let's take this season. How about that, right? Best running back in the league, led the league in rushing. He's a monster. Love having him on the team. I love him. Just not interested in paying him big money. So if I could get something back that's great after this year or whatever, and instead of having to pay him and then just go replace him, I would do it. Now, here's why. Let's go this season. Through 4 games this year, I'm going to give you the numbers for Zeke. I'm going to help you. I want to help your case. 73 carries, 426 rushing yards, 5.8 yards per carry, leading the league in rushing. The team was 2-2. Might have been 0-4 if they didn't have him. Shout out to fieldgoals.com for the stats here. But yeah, he had incredible numbers. He's leading the league in rushing. He's powering the offense. They're at 2-2, and they probably wouldn't have been without him, at least the way those games played out, right? It would have hurt him to not have him. What a stud. Monster. Nobody's running the ball better than Zeke, and they're 2-2. They're 30th in the league in scoring at that point. 30th. So if you're telling me, woo, I can't give that up because, man, we'd be in so much trouble without him, would you? Or would you play the game differently? Because that's what it's about. It's not about any of the individual players. I would say the exact same with Saquon Barkley. I would say the exact same with anybody. If you have an opportunity to recoup a first-round pick at some point for a running back, yes, please. So at that point, you're leading the league in rushing over 100 yards a game, almost 6 yards a carry, and you're the 3rd worst offense in football. You don't score points. Why? Because the passing game is infinitely more efficient than that. Almost 6 yards a carry, and you're almost the worst offense in football. So how do you fix that? You got the best running back in the world on the planet. He's the best. What are you going to do? You're stuck. They play 3 more games. Zeke runs it. Awesome. 2 of those games, he's incredible. I believe it's the Washington game in Week 7. They shut down the run game, and you get to 3-4 with the leading rusher in the league. Great yards per carry. Awesome player, and you're one of the worst offenses in football. While you're leaning on the run game, leaning on one of the best backs in the league, and he's doing his job exquisitely. He's doing it great. Nobody could have run the ball better than Zeke did through those 7 weeks. And you were 3-4 with one of the worst offenses in football until you gave up a first-round pick to go get Amari Cooper. Then what? Zeke kept running the ball well. But now your quarterback's playing better because he's got somebody to throw to. The guy behind him that he's handing the ball off to couldn't make the offense great. He did everything humanly possible to try to make the offense great, but he couldn't because that position can't. You can't do it. The most efficient best running game in the league, gets you the 30th best offense in the league, and your running back is going to run for 2,000 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, win the MVP, and you're going to have one of the worst offenses in the league. And that's what people want. They want to talk about how great the run back is. That's crazy. So you add Amari Cooper, you go 7-2 because suddenly your passing game is working because it's a passing league. Completion percentages are going up. Like teams are going away from running to throw the ball more. And by throwing it more, completion percentages are going up. Yards per attempt is going up. Like everything is going up because this is schematic. This is the change in football. Maybe there'll come a day where everybody out there is so tiny and teams play coverage so hard at all times that the best thing to do is hand it off. But until then, holy cow, it's a different league. So let's look at some of the other teams because last year really helped define this for me and I think for a lot of people. So you look around the league. Obviously, everybody's familiar with Le'Veon Bell. Doesn't play football at all. And when he doesn't play football, what do the Steelers do? They go from 104 rushing yards per game. This is on theringer.com. If you just look up The Ringer and then look up something like running backs don't matter or something like that, and it'll pop up. But the 2018 season, they rushed for fewer yards per game. Their yards per carry went up by a half a yard without Le'Veon Bell. So maybe there is a secret to, hey, having Zeke makes people focus on Zeke, and he's still able to run the ball well. And holy cow, that's really helpful to your team. That's great. But I don't care his yards per carry. I don't care about him running the ball because you could be the best running team of all time. And in today's NFL, your offense is going to rank in the 20s. But if you're an average passing team, you're going to score 10 more points per game. Holy cow. So like it's not about Zeke. It's not about Le'Veon Bell. It's not about Saquon Barkley. It's not about whatever running back you want to pick. But look around the league. We did the Cowboys right there. And then look around the league. The Chiefs, when they released Kareem Hunt last year, they started Spencer Ware. Didn't miss a beat. Then when he goes down with a hamstring injury, they bring in Damian Williams and Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams is an undrafted rookie. In 11 weeks with Kareem Hunt, they're getting 115 yards on the ground, 4.8 a carry. Success rate when they run the ball, 51.5%. And that matters. I know this is kind of new to a lot of people, but success rate is basically the amount of yards you need to get to keep yourself on track. So on 1st and 10, if you run the ball for 3 yards, that's not successful. 2 yards, not successful. You run it for 4? Okay. That was okay. Then you get to 2nd and 6. If you run it for 4 yards, that's a successful run. 2, not a successful run. So there's ways to measure this. The Chiefs, when they lost Kareem Hunt, averaged 6 less rushing yards a game, 0.4 yards per carry less, and their rushing success rate went up to 60%. They were successful on run plays 9% more of the time with inferior players. Wow. That's wow. Now, the one thing I would concede is it can't be just anybody. The Cowboys were searching for backup running backs because, with all due respect, they named him by name. Rod Smith didn't really get the job done. Now, I wouldn't mind that. Just stop handing it to him. Just throw the football. But the Chargers, 10 games that Melvin Gordon played, one of the best running teams in football, 137 rush yards per game, 5.2 yards per carry, 55% success rate. When he missed 4 weeks and they had to rely on a change of pace back in Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson, they ran for less yards per game, way less yards per carry, and their success rate went down. So I'm not saying you can replace a great running back with anybody, but I'm saying they matter a lot less than you think. Even Melvin Gordon, so we just named one, right? He goes out, the backups didn't get it done. Okay? So even in that situation, he was super successful this year because of the Chargers' improvements on the offensive line. First 3 years in the NFL, less than 4 yards a carry. Then all of a sudden, when the metrics say that offensive line is blocking better, he's a 5-yard per carry back. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a dependent position. If you block for me, I can run the ball well. On top of that, if I run the ball well, it doesn't mean much in terms of me having a good offense. What really matters is how do you throw to me? That's what matters. Like Todd Gurley when he was healthy, sure, the DVOA, all those numbers, he's a positive compared to other running backs when you hand him the ball, but he's a positive 3 times as high when you throw him the ball over what other guys will do. So running backs matter because they need to catch the ball. Running backs matter because for now, no team is going to throw 100% of the time. Although I tell you what, I'm real curious what it looks like if you throw 90. Thanks, Stomp. Appreciate you. Just making a video. Somebody must be home. So anyway, I don't want to trade Zeke. I want him to take the ball, run it, win the Super Bowl. I want the Cowboys to call more efficient plays. I want them to have a great season, win the Super Bowl. That's what I want. But the idea that trading him is crazy? Running backs just don't matter as much as you think. It's not you, Zeke. I bought the shirt. I'm wearing my cowboy hat. It's not you. It's the league. When it comes down to the choice of pay the great back or move on, and if you can get compensation, you can get compensation, take it and run. It's not you. It's the league.